Hello there, my name is Volton, and welcome back to the Bloodtime Archive. So, yeah, I know it's been a while. I said this would be an inspiration episode 2, I believe, but, yeah, I don't really want to work on that right now. I just don't have a lot of motivation to work on, video essays right now. And, you know what, I don't really have too much time to write much of a new script. So instead, I had an idea. Why don't I make an entire video explaining the entire story of the old Fightings of Bloodtime games, along with those Knights Against the Forgotten, since that is fully canon, and all the added DLCs, and along with some other events that I have yet to add to the official document with the timeline of the games. So, we're just gonna cut straight to it, and yeah, we're gonna go over pretty much everything the modern Fightings of Bloodtime timeline has to offer. Let's get in, and begin in 1993. The story begins in 1993, specifically during the days of the Final Fantasy 1 location. It's worth noting that only the first 4 Final Fantasy games are canon, but the only one that's really important is FNAF 1. Even then, it's kind of weird. The FNAF 1 location here opened in March 1993. FNAF 1 would happen in this universe in November 1993. Anyway, the month that these events in 1993 take place in is July. We start off with a young Timothy Campbell, fresh out of college. He's at his first job, at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza 3. At this point, he has a pretty small income, but he doesn't have a very big house anyway, so it's not a big deal for him. His boss is a man named Austin Brown. He had been managing the location since its opening earlier that year, in March. Everything seemed pretty chill during the time that Timothy was serving as the guard. Of course, that was until, the classic animatronics began moving around the location. It was for reasons pretty obvious to the average viewer, or fan of the Final Fantasy series at this point. But to Timothy Campbell, this was shocking. As soon as he found out that the animatronics were moving, he quickly informed his advisor, Austin. Austin, however, dismissed it as Timothy being a scaredy cat and whatnot, and making up lies. Timothy really did not like this, and eventually he started to really hate his boss, and that should really never be happening. In the end, he decided instead of shutting off the animatronics through the backstage like he normally did after his shift, he decided to leave them on for his boss to see that he wasn't insane. A very bad idea from Timothy. By the time Austin arrived, he noticed that Timothy had still not yet left. When he entered the location, he would be attacked by Foxy. Timothy would get out alive and uninjured. Austin, however, was badly injured. This event would be the final trigger for Austin to go completely insane. The past few years, he had not been doing so great mentally, due to his own personal tragic events in his life, leading to one single event that could make him lose everything. This was the event. After this, he finally lost his mind. After he was discharged from the hospital, he started collaborating with other criminals in the Columbus area. Together, they would establish the Warhawk clan. The clan would get rid of anyone that got in their way. That was the general gist of the clan, and it was all because of one event caused by Timothy. The clan never had the right time to attack until 2020, around 27 years later. The year is now 2020. At this point, Timothy Campbell had actually finally gained enough money to start working on a project that he had wanted to work on for years. Of course, it was partially inspired by the success of Freddy Fazbear's, but that wasn't important anymore. They were long gone at this point, having closed down 27 years ago. He decided to buy out a small little location and put 2 animatronic characters in there. These animatronics would be a red bear named Brandon and a red and blue rabbit named Buzz. This diner was pretty small. However, Timothy was certain that Brandon Steiner would leave a mark on Columbus, Ohio. Now, he had actually not given Brandon any movement at this time. Only Buzz was given the ability to move around. This was because Brandon and Buzz had different purposes. Brandon was a stage performer, and Buzz was a cook and waiter, meaning he would cook and serve food. And when the restaurant would finally open on June 28th, 2020, it was a success. The restaurant got tons of money very quickly. However, this did not go unnoticed by the clan. The Warhawks decided that this is the perfect opportunity to finally strike back at Timothy. So, around this time, a new member would join the Warhawk clan. This member would only be known as Holy Time. No one knew what his true name was, but they feared him. They were worried about what happen to him if they opposed him. Of course, starting out, he was at the bottom, but because of what would happen next, he would become the right-hand man behind Austin Brown. He had a lot of skills with programming. He was able to successfully program the Bloodtime virus, which could latch on to any animatronic it wanted. This worked especially good for Brandon and Buzz, due to the fact that they had the same coding language as the Bloodtime virus. Brandon at this point had full virus protection, and that was the reason why he originally didn't really have any problems. However, Buzz did not have any virus protection, and so the Bloodtime virus infected him. Around 1 p.m., a child had approached Buzz because he was admired by the moving robot. Buzz, however, being completely infected, attacked the kid. And once Timothy found out about the incident, he immediately closed down the restaurant. After a while, Timothy was cleared of all suspicion of the incident. He was allowed to reopen under one condition: Buzz be removed from service. So, with that in mind, Timothy decided to begin working on the next location. But in the meantime, Buzz and Brandon would both be stored in a recently acquired factory that was believed to be formerly part of Fazbear Entertainment. Both of them had their own unique storage rooms. Timothy didn't want anything to happen to animatronics while he was away during the night, so he hired a night guard. The night guard's name appears nowhere on the records. However, this is not important. What is important, however, is he started to see the animatronics moving around during his first 3 nights. After night 3, he couldn't take it anymore and finally told Timothy about what was happening. Unlike Austin, Timothy took all this very seriously, called the authorities about an animatronic being infected. It was quickly realized, however, that both Brandon and Buzz were infected at this point, meaning that Holy Time most likely was able to send the Bloodtime virus out again to infect Brandon. A police officer, who has also remained unidentified, would finish the remainder of the week. Timothy agreed to dispose of Buzz and not use any of his parts, while he would also try to do his best to get rid of the virus that was inside of Brandon. It's worth noting that Brandon at this point had full movement, since he now had to take on the tasks that Buzz once did. Eventually, he was able to finally mostly repair Brandon and moved him to a new location, which was currently a warehouse that was in the process of being converted to a restaurant. He decided to hire a new night guard for this. This night guard has also decided to remain anonymous. During the night guard shift, Brandon started moving around on the first night again. However, everyone thought that the virus had been cleared from Brandon's systems, so they decided this was likely just a kink in the system that needed to be worked out. Timothy did more work on Brandon, and everyone thought that would be bad. That was not true, however. Brandon continued moving around, and after further investigations, it was realized that Brandon was still very much infected with the Bloodtime virus. However, he wasn't in the terrible state that he was in weeks prior. It was determined that if he couldn't see you, then you would be fine. So as a result of this, the guard would only have to turn off their lights in the office whenever Brandon came in, and he'd be fine. This would later get the attention of the Warhawk clan. Bloodtime in response would send the Bloodtime virus out onto the camera systems, and it could now control the building's power as well. Everyone was surprised that it could even do this. This is when Bloodtime would finally begin to be noticed by Austin. He was able to start moving up the ranks very quickly. Eventually, Brandon would end up kidnapping a child. The child would remain unfound for a few months, before finally its corpse would be found in the woods. No handprints were on the body, but after looking through camera footage, it was determined that Brandon, still infected with the Bloodtime virus, was the culprit. And on July 13th, 2020, Brandon's Pizzeria would be cancelled. Timothy Campbell officially announced the dissolution of Brandon Robotics Incorporated, citing it as a dangerous place that was repeating the history of Fazbear Entertainment. He didn't want to repeat the same mistakes that the ill-fated company once did. And with that, he left. The Warhawk clan celebrated their victory. However, the story does not end here. A lot more still has to be gone over. And that takes us to 2028. It is now the year of 2028. Brandon Robotics Incorporated no longer exists. Timothy Campbell has now resorted to a private life, only occasionally coming around when he absolutely feels that he absolutely needs to. The industry for animatronic entertainment became very minimal. Only around a few restaurant chains were still left. One company notices and decided to make that change. 9-Day Innovations promised to bring back the Brandon brand, new and improved. They were even able to acquire the original animatronic from Timothy Campbell, who, at this point, did not want anything to do with the series. However, they quickly realized that bringing back Brandon, like the original animatronic, would not be a good idea, due to the bad press the company originally had, and also the animatronic itself was likely still infected with the Bloodtime virus. For other reasons, they decided to not bring back Brandon, but instead go in a whole new direction, to make 3 new animatronics for their own unique location. These 3 animatronics would be 2 bears and a bunny. They included Sahil, Nathan, and Simon. Sahil was a yellow bear, Nathan a blue bear, and Simon a Norwegian rabbit. They thought that people would love the characters, and when they officially announced it, they got a lot of good press, and people were very hopeful for the future. However, for the meantime, until the location was done being built, it basically wasn't really going to be finished until June 28th, 2029. Sounds familiar. Anyway, for the time being, the animatronics, after completion, would be stored in their headquarters. Now, originally, the Warhawk clan didn't really think they would have to do much about it. They expected to just let them fly by, but they quickly realized that since they held Brandon, an animatronic that held one of the only remaining copies of the Bloodtime virus, that could be a problem. And since Bloodtime no longer had access to his old code, Brandon would be their best option since nobody knew where Buzz was at the time. In fact, no scrapper ever scrapped Buzz. And so, 9-Day Innovations became the next target of the Warhawk clan. So, Bloodtime noticed that none of the animatronics used the same code this time, which meant that he would have to code 3 new viruses. That was not very good. It would mean that the job would be harder than last time, since the Bloodtime virus could be attached to both Brandon and Buzz. This time, you had to make 3 individual viruses for each individual animatronic. That would take longer, but it would work. So, they got to work. Bloodtime, now officially the right-hand man of Austin Brown, was able to complete 3 new viruses: the Suntime virus, the Nighttime virus, and the Shadow virus, but more commonly known as Suntime, Nighttime, and Shadow Time. Suntime would go to Sahil, Nighttime to Nathan, and Shadow Time to Simon. The company never noticed this, however, as by the time that the viruses finally were latched onto Dream animatronics, their new night guard had started his first night. However, the manager of the place, he had basically had access to the cameras as well, so he'd also be looking through them. And he noticed the animatronics moving around. However, he instructed the guard about what to do in case this one of this happened again. To just use that door to his advantage, and other defense systems put in place. However, Brandon was different. He could get through the door somehow, so they were to contain him with a simple music box. This would be temporary, however. The guard was able to survive for a few nights before the music box no longer worked on Brandon, and he began moving towards the office too. The clan knew that the viruses were not working as intended this time, so Holy Time had an idea. They lured the 9-Day Innovation CEO, also the phone guy actually, out to Brandon's diner, because apparently there was something useful for their company there. He called the night guard during the middle of his shift, explaining what had happened. He could hear something running around. The thing is, the clan intended on just killing the guy themselves, but they realized something was out there. Could it be Buzz? And in the end, the night guard's boss would be killed in the middle of the call on night 5. The clan themselves realized that Buzz had reached a new level of dangerous. Recycling the Bloodtime virus from Buzz, who was still around as it would turn out, would be impossible. Buzz can single-handedly wipe out half the clan if he wanted to. So Brandon would again be their best bet. And eventually, the guard got his payment, and he was asked to come back the following week. And he did so. Week 2 starts out like this. The guard gets another call from someone else, explaining that new defense measures had been put up, including now a door on the window. Nothing else really changed after this. It was the same characters, just in a new setting. However, on night 6, he was back. Buzz had been attracted to 9-Day Innovation's HQ, where the night guard still was. And so, Buzz also began attacking as well. The guard's final night would be mayhem. In the end, he would survive, and afterwards, he would be paid, and he would quit on the spot. The 3 animatronics would be auctioned off afterwards after having all their AI removed. And 9-Day Innovations, too, would dissolve. Thankfully, the process, well, thankfully for the clan, thankfully for the Warhawk clan, getting rid of 9-Day Innovations was much easier than getting rid of Brand Robotics Incorporated. Things in 2028 were not over yet, however. Thing is, all this time, a detective from the Columbus Police Department had been onto them. Aloysius Crawford. He had been hunting down the Warhawk clan for years, trying to get them convicted of something, but he never got anywhere. Finally, he was able to actually take a closer look, along with a roboticist, at Sahil's AI after it was recovered. And they were able to trace it back to the Warhawk clan. The clan's cover had been busted. They all were able to flee their headquarters before authorities arrived. However, they were still being tracked down, and they wouldn't be long before they were tracked down again. This time, however, there wasn't anywhere to run but the ventilation shafts in the building they were hiding. Holy Time all this time, however, he wanted to become the leader of the clan. He only joined for the sole purpose of gaining power, becoming the biggest crimester in maybe the entire country. Why? He just wanted to. He didn't have a motive, he just wanted to. It's unclear what Holy Time's motive was, but no one would ever know. During this time, Holy Time realized that this was the moment he could ditch Austin. He gathered all the clan's highest members into the ventilation shafts where they would escape, before Bloodtime went in himself and sealed them behind them, leaving Austin and several weaker clan members behind to get caught by Aloysius Crawford and several other police officers. It made national headlines of the Warhawk clan finally beginning to see their downfall, and several people were hoping that the rest of the clan one day would be caught. This is not the end of Austin Brown's story, however. That'll be concluded in our next little era, from 2029 to 2039. So, the events between those Knights Against the Forgotten and Finance of Bloodtime 3, well, they're not as important, but nonetheless, they're still part of the story, and we need to talk about them. But since there's a lot, we're going to make this a lightning round. So, in 2029, Bloodtime confronts Austin Brown, who is now in prison, with Bloodtime revealing his true motive to Austin, that Bloodtime manipulated Austin's unstable mental health to become the clan's leader, and thus abandoning Austin Brown and changing the name of the Warhawk clan to the Bloodtime clan. In 2032, Bloodtime and a bunch of thugs kidnap scientists, and along with other subjects, to use their organs, and by their, I mean, the subjects, to create the Blood Monster, a fleshy beast that would, not long after its creation, go on to use Brandon's shell to sort of mask itself, make it look like an animatronic of sorts, to lure in victims and kill them, as a sort of henchman for the Bloodtime clan. In 2033, a gang war happened in the Ohio State Prison, and in that conflict, Austin was killed. It was only a matter of time before something like this happened. It was expected to happen regardless. In 2037, word gets out that Timothy Campbell was dead. He had lived his life, he was able to raise his daughter Tori, and he died happily. Of course, the years in 2020 was rough for him, but afterward, after he got a normal job, his life went smoothly. And in the end, he lived a pretty nice life in his final 10 years. In the end, he lived with zero regrets. Bloodtime was never concerned with Timothy in the first place, so this event never really mattered to him. However, he did laugh knowing that the original leader of the clan would never get to see the day. However, by the end of the 2030s, Aloysius Crawford, who had been staying idly by, had gotten now so close to now having all the evidence required to officially convict the Bloodtime clan and get the government involved. Things were getting serious now, and 2040 was going to be rough. Very rough. It was a late night in September 2040. Aloysius had finally gotten the last bit of evidence he needed to take out the Bloodtime clan for good. He kept the case file on him at all times to make sure the clan never got a hold of it themselves. The clan figured out about this really quickly. Bloodtime decided to send some clan members out to kill Aloysius and seize the case file. So, that was the plan. Kill Aloysius when he was usually asleep, and seize the case file. So, everything seemed to be going smoothly until when they got to Aloysius' house. The thing is, Aloysius was awake. Fully awake. He had gone home late that day and was reading from a book in his kitchen. He heard some people moving around outside, and decided to just take a look at it and see what was going on. He noticed that it was a clan member that was walking around along with some others because he could see their 10-pointed badges just reflecting off the moonlight. As soon as Aloysius saw this, He grabbed the case file and started running for the woods to get out of there. The clan members decided to just not follow him and tell Bloodtime that Aloysius seemed to be heading in the direction of an abandoned diner. That diner just so happened to be Brandon and Buzz's diner. There was nothing out there at that point, and the only thing really out there, I guess now, was Buzz. Still standing after all this time. Bloodtime decided that they'd let Buzz kill Aloysius. And if that didn't work, then they'd try something else that Bloodtime was certain would work. Just as those clan members suspected, Aloysius ended up at the diner. And you know what? Bloodtime was able to successfully hack into the diner's cameras. He decided to launch the Bloodtime virus back onto it for the first time in years. He successfully found a new copy of it from Brandon's CPU after the Blood Monster had recovered it. But it did not have the same effect that Bloodtime was hoping for. See, Bloodtime was hoping that it wouldn't mess with the diner's remaining systems. But all it really did was cause a sort of apparition of Brandon to appear in the camera. During the hours from 12 to 6 every day while Aloysius was hiding, he saw this apparition of sorts. He could tell it wasn't really there, but it was still weird seeing this reappearance of Brandon just there. Perhaps it was a warning of what was to come. Buzz had also found where Aloysius was and decided to just kill Aloysius. Not to return the case file, but literally just because that's what Buzz's AI was doing at this point. Maybe only around 5% of Buzz's original AI, programmed by Timothy Campbell, still remained. From nights 1 to 5, this was how it was. After night 5, though, Aloysius radioed out to the main city for help, but he was told that it would take at least 2 days to find him, and so he continued waiting. Night 6 ended up being the same as before, but finally, Bloodtime got impatient, and he decided to just send the Blood Monster out to the diner to kill Aloysius. When the Blood Monster got there, he looked at Buzz, and Bloodtime, through a radio, commanded the Blood Monster to destroy Buzz, since it didn't really do anything for anyone at this point. Then, he was told to just resume the task: kill Aloysius. Night 7, better known as Bloodthirst, ended up being the hardest night of the entire week. Aloysius figured out that the audio worked with the Blood Monster, but not in the way he was expecting. The reason that this audio button was able to work with Buzz was because Buzz followed the audio, but the audio actually scared the Blood Monster away. So Aloysius just realized he had to just keep the Blood Monster back. When 6 AM hit that night, he hoped that the Blood Monster wouldn't do anything anymore, but the thing is, the Blood Monster didn't rely on the 12 to 6 thing like the animatronics did, because he was not really an animatronic at this point. And so, when Aloysius let his guard down, he attacked. But at that moment, the reinforcements finally arrived and shot the Blood Monster dead. But the thing is, Aloysius was bleeding badly and he was unconscious. So, he was taken to a hospital. At this hospital, he had nightmares of his experience at the diner. Each around Halloween and Christmas. Halloween made things look a bit different, and so did Christmas. The wall pattern had changed, and we looked at the animatronics on the camera. Brandon now looked like a ghost, and Buzz like a pumpkin. The Blood Monster became this weird mossy thingy, with skeleton arms coming out of its back instead of the tentacles. Aloysius later dubbed this thing as the Halloween Demon. Around Christmas time, everything changed again. This time, again the wall pattern yet again changed, and it was now snowing outside furiously. When he looked at the animatronics on the cameras, he just saw them fully repaired. Brandon was repaired, but still rotten, but still. And instead of the blood monster, there was just this blue bear thingy with ice spikes coming out of its back. Aloysius also later dubbed this guy the Frostbite. Finally, on Christmas Day, Aloysius finally woke up, and after he was discharged from the hospital, he found out what happened after the case file was recovered by authorities. In the end, the FBI did get involved, and finally, the clan had been cornered. But things did not end the way they were hoping. Bloodtime was not captured alive. What happened was, when Bloodtime was finally cornered, he took a police officer hostage and threatened to kill the officer if he wasn't let go. Those officers had reminded Bloodtime they had all the evidence they needed to lock Bloodtime away, but Bloodtime just told them that they had zero evidence against him. They had evidence for stuff the other clan members did, but not for Bloodtime specifically, and the officers realized he had a point. They had evidence to convict the other clan members, but not Holy Time. And Holy Time told them that the only way they'd get him caught was if he confessed. But he never did, as right after he said that, he let the officer go and took the gun he was holding and shot himself through the roof of his mouth, killing himself instantly. And yeah, that was it. It was all over. Everything was over. The animatronics were destroyed. The blood monster was gone. Most importantly, the last remnants of the thing that had been plaguing Columbus for nearly 50 years was gone. It was all finally over. Okay everyone, thank you all so much for watching this. This video took a very long time. Actually, I'm pretty sure I started on this video in like maybe April. Wow, that was a long time ago, eh? You know, this video took so long that during the time that I would spend editing this video, I actually ended up just making a whole nother canon spin-off game based off the 1993 segment of this video. Wow. Anyway, yeah. So, I'm just gonna say it, I don't plan on making huge videos like this for a while, just because this took so long. And you know what, I want to start maybe uploading on the Bloodtime archives a lot more often. So, yeah. That's kind of what I really have to say at this point, so yeah, I guess maybe in the future we'll cover some other stories, but I guess that's it for now. One last thing though, there's a lot more to this Silly Little Game series than you may realize. It may now seem like one linear story, but there's more to everything here than you may realize.